He was a billionaire, broken by betrayal and haunted by the past. But when he saw a waitress quietly feeding his disabled son, he never imagined that one simple act would change both of their lives forever. What happens next will shock you, move your heart, and teach a lesson you will never forget. I still remember the night. That changed everything. The restaurant smelled of warm bread and strong coffee. Rain slid slowly down the glass windows. I sat in the darkest corner, watching my son, my little boy. His legs rested quietly in the wheelchair. He smiled at strangers, who rarely smiled back. Being a billionaire never protected my heart from pain. Money built towers, but it never healed a father's helplessness. Many people saw my wealth. Few people saw my lonely child. That evening, a young waitress approached our table. Her uniform was simple. Her hands trembled slightly from a long day of work. She placed our food down gently. Then she noticed my son. Not his chair. Not his weakness. She noticed him. His small eyes brightened. She knelt beside him, as if the whole world had slowed. I watched carefully. Rich men learn to observe people. Many smile for money. Few smile with kindness. My son struggled to lift his spoon. His hands shook. Before I could move, she quietly sat beside him. She lifted the spoon softly and fed him, one careful bite at a time, like a mother protecting something fragile. My chest tightened. No cameras. No applause. Just a tired waitress sharing patience with my child. Then I heard something that froze my heart. She whispered to him gently, "I know what it feels like when the world moves too fast for you." My eyes lifted slowly. Her voice carried pain. A pain that sounded familiar. I stood from my chair and walked toward them. Years of wealth, power, and business battles suddenly felt meaningless. Because at that moment, one quiet act of kindness felt more powerful than every fortune I owned. I looked at her carefully. Something in her eyes felt strangely familiar. Something I had not seen in many years. And when she finally looked up at me, our eyes met, and she suddenly whispered my name. My heart stopped. For a moment, the noise of the restaurant faded. Rain tapped softly on the glass. Plates clinked in the distance. But all I could hear was her voice repeating my name. David. No one had spoken my name like that in years. Not with warmth. Not with memory. I stared at her carefully. Her face carried exhaustion. Long shifts. Hard days. Silent battles. But behind that tired expression, I suddenly recognized something. Those same determined eyes. The same quiet strength. Then the truth struck me. Like lightning through a dark sky. Sarah? Her lips trembled slightly. A small smile appeared, mixed with disbelief. Yes. 20 years vanished. In a single heartbeat. The restaurant. The rain. The wealth. The suits. All disappeared. I was no longer a billionaire. I was the same poor boy, standing outside a college gate, with empty pockets and impossible dreams. Sarah slowly stood up. Her hands still carried the warmth from feeding my son. "You changed a lot," she said softly. I looked at my son, still smiling in his chair. Then I looked back at her. So did life, I replied quietly. Memories flooded my mind. The broken hostel rooms. Late nights studying under dim lights. Empty plates. Crushed dreams. And Sarah. Always Sarah. The girl who shared her lunch with me. When I had nothing. The girl who once sold her only gold bracelet. So I could pay my final semester fee. A sacrifice. I never forgot. But one day. I disappeared from her life. Not by choice. By betrayal. My business partner had stolen everything. My ideas. My savings. My future. I left the city with shame. And a promise to rebuild my life. I searched for her later. For years. But Sarah had vanished. Now she stood in front of me. Wearing a waitress uniform. Feeding my disabled son. With the same kindness she once gave me. My throat tightened. Life had made me a billionaire. But fate had brought me back. To the woman. Who built the first bricks of my dream. I slowly asked her one question. A question that carried 20 years of silence. Sarah, why are you working here? Her eyes dropped. A shadow crossed her face. And the answer she whispered next made my entire world shake again. Her fingers tightened around the empty plate. For a moment. She did not speak. The restaurant lights reflected in her eyes. But something inside them looked distant. I had a son, she said quietly. The words fell slowly. Like heavy stones in a still lake. My chest tightened. What happened? I asked softly. Sarah breathed in deeply. As if gathering broken pieces of courage. He was born weak, she said. His legs never worked the way they should. My heart skipped. My eyes moved slowly. Toward my own son in the wheelchair. The same fragile posture. The same brave little smile. Sarah noticed where I was looking. A gentle sadness crossed her face. I worked everywhere, she continued. Hospitals. Kitchens. Night shifts. I tried everything to save him. Her voice trembled. But she kept speaking. Mothers learn to fight battles. No one else can see. I felt something sharp. Twisting inside my chest. Years ago. She had sacrificed everything for my future. Now she had been fighting alone. And I did not even know. What happened to him? I asked carefully. Her eyes filled with quiet tears. But they did not fall. He lived for 8 years, she whispered. 8 beautiful years. Her voice softened. He loved trains. He laughed loudly. He believed the world was kind. Then her gaze shifted slowly. Toward my son. That is why I helped him, she said. For a moment. It felt like my boy was still here. Silence filled the space between us. I looked at my son. He was laughing now. As he played with the spoon she had given him. A warmth rose in my chest. Not wealth. Not power. Something deeper. Something human. Sarah wiped her eyes gently. And picked up the empty plates. I am sorry, she said politely. I should get back to work. She turned to walk away. But something inside me refused to let that moment end. 20 years ago. She carried my dreams. When I had nothing. And now life had quietly placed her back in front of me. I took one step forward. Sarah, I called. She stopped. Slowly. She turned around again. And the decision forming in my heart was about to change both of our lives forever. Sarah turned slowly. The restaurant lights softened around her, as if time itself had paused. Her eyes searched my face with quiet confusion. I felt my heartbeat growing heavier. For years, I had built companies, signed contracts worth millions, commanded rooms full of powerful men. But at that moment, standing in front of her, felt harder than every battle I had fought. I looked at my son. He was still smiling, innocently spinning the spoon in his hands. Then I looked back at Sarah. The same girl, who once believed in a poor boy, when the world laughed at his dreams. Sarah, I said gently, you carried my future once. She shook her head softly. I only did what any friend would do. But I knew the truth. No. Not everyone sacrifices like that. Not everyone sells their last gold bracelet for someone else's hope. I stepped closer. You gave me a chance when I had nothing, I said. And I disappeared without thanking you. Pain flickered briefly in her eyes. But she remained calm. I thought you forgot, she whispered. Her words struck deeper than any insult. Forgot? I built an empire, trying to prove her sacrifice meant something. I searched for you for years, I said quietly. I wanted to return what you gave me. She smiled sadly. You already did. Her eyes moved again. Toward my son. You became the man you dreamed of becoming. But she did not understand. Success without gratitude is an empty victory. And I had carried that emptiness for 20 long years. I reached into my pocket slowly and removed a small folded paper. Something I had kept with me. Through every success. Through every failure. Through every sleepless night. Her old college fee receipt. The one she paid for me. Her name was still written on it. In faded blue ink. Sarah stared at the paper. And her hands began to tremble. You kept this, she whispered. Every day, I answered. Her eyes filled with emotion. But the next words forming in my mind were not about money. Not about repayment. They were about something far bigger. Something that would change both of our lives forever. And as I opened my mouth to speak, Sarah suddenly stepped back. As if she already feared what I might say next. Sarah stepped back slowly. Her eyes filled with worry. As if kindness always came with a hidden cost. I do not want charity, she said quietly. Her voice was gentle, but firm. I learned to stand on my own feet. The words carried pride. The kind that grows only through pain. I nodded slowly. I know, I said. And that is exactly why I respect you. She looked uncertain. Years of hardship had clearly taught her not to trust sudden generosity. I understood that feeling. Once. I trusted the wrong person too. A partner. A friend. The man who stole my first company. And left me drowning in debt. I lost everything. Money. Reputation. Hope. For a long time. I believed my dream had died. But then. I remembered one thing. Sarah selling her bracelet. So I could finish my education. If she believed in my future, I had no right to give up. That memory became my fuel. I worked day and night. Small jobs. Tiny investments. Risk after risk. Failure after failure. Until one idea finally changed everything. And today, people call me a billionaire. But they never saw the broken nights behind that success. Sarah listened quietly. Her eyes softened. As she heard the truth she never knew. You never stopped fighting, she whispered. No, I said. Because someone once believed I could win. Silence settled between us again. The restaurant continued moving. Customers laughed. Plates moved. Life continued. But in that small moment, two old lives were quietly reconnecting. My son suddenly laughed loudly, dropping the spoon on the floor. Sarah instinctively bent down and picked it up for him. The same kindness. The same gentle patience. Watching her with my child sparked an idea in my heart. Not charity. Not repayment. Something meaningful. Something worthy of her strength. Sarah, I said slowly. There is something I want to build. She looked at me carefully. A place for children like my son. Her eyes widened slightly. A place where disability does not mean loneliness. Her fingers tightened around the spoon. And I want someone strong enough to help lead it. She looked confused. Almost frightened. Then she asked the one question that would decide everything. Why me? I took a deep breath. Because the answer would change both our lives forever. I looked directly into her eyes. Because you understand pain, I said softly. Because you understand patience. And because you love children. Who the world often forgets. Sarah stood still. The restaurant noise faded around us again. Her fingers slowly loosened. From the spoon she was holding. You think I can do something like that? She asked quietly. There was doubt in her voice. Not weakness. Just the scars of many difficult years. I nodded. I do not just think it, I replied. I know it. Her eyes searched my face. As if trying to measure the truth of my words. You built a life from nothing, I continued. You worked through grief. You survived loss that many people would never recover from. A tear slipped down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. As if she had trained herself never to cry in public. But I am just a waitress now, she whispered. No, I said firmly. You are a woman who never stopped caring. And that is more powerful than any degree. Or title. My son suddenly reached out his hand. Toward Sarah. His small fingers wrapped around hers. He smiled at her. With pure innocent joy. Sarah froze. Her eyes filled with emotion again. He likes you, I said gently. Children often recognize kindness before adults do. She knelt beside him slowly. Her hand remained in his. For a moment. She closed her eyes. I could see memories moving through her mind. Her son. His laughter. His tiny dreams. The life she had lost. When she opened her eyes again. Something had changed. A quiet strength had returned. If we build this place, she said slowly. It must be different. I leaned closer. Different how? Her voice grew steadier. No child should feel like a burden. No parent should feel alone. Her words carried wisdom that no business school could ever teach. I felt a deep respect rise in my chest. She was already thinking like a leader. Already imagining a better world. And that was exactly the person I had been searching for. But before I could speak again, Sarah asked something unexpected. Your business partner who betrayed you. My jaw tightened slightly. Yes? Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. What if he finds out about this? A cold memory passed through my mind. Because the man who once destroyed my life had never truly disappeared. And the truth about him was far more dangerous than Sarah could possibly imagine. A cold silence settled inside me. For years, I had buried that chapter of my life. Success had built distance between me and the man who once ruined everything. But distance is not the same as safety. Sarah, I said quietly, some wounds never completely disappear. She watched my face carefully. Not with fear. With understanding. Because people who have suffered recognize the shadows inside others. The man who betrayed me, I continued, did not only steal my company. He stole the future I had built. With trust. Sarah stood still. Rain tapped softly against the windows again. He disappeared after that, I said. For a long time I believed he had run away from everything. But 3 years ago, I heard something unexpected. Her brows slowly tightened. What? I exhaled slowly. He became powerful. Sarah looked shocked. How? The same way he destroyed me, I answered. By using other people. The restaurant lights flickered gently above us. My son laughed softly from his chair, still holding Sarah's hand. That small innocent sound felt like a reminder of why this dream mattered. Sarah looked at him, then back at me. If we build this place for children, she said carefully, it must be protected. Her voice carried quiet determination. No lies. No greed. No exploitation. I nodded slowly. That is exactly why I need someone like you. Her eyes softened again. For a moment, hope began to replace hesitation. But then, the front door of the restaurant opened. Cold wind entered the room. Several people walked inside. Business suits. Confident steps. The manager rushed forward. With sudden nervous respect. I felt my chest tighten. Because the man walking at the center of that group was someone I recognized immediately. Older. Richer. But impossible to mistake. The same sharp eyes. The same calculating smile. The man who once destroyed my life was now standing inside this restaurant. And he had just seen me. His gaze slowly shifted. From me. To Sarah. Then to my son. And the smile on his face slowly changed into something far more dangerous. I stepped forward, my son still holding Sarah's hand, feeling the small warmth of hope in the cold air. The man's eyes met mine. The same sharp, calculating stare from years ago. He had power. He had wealth. But I had something he could never take back, resilience. Sarah squeezed my son's hand and looked at me with quiet courage. Her strength was not in wealth or position, but in heart. It was the same strength that had shaped my life when I had nothing. I see you, I said calmly to the man. You may have taken from me before. But you will not take my future or my family. He smirked briefly. Then realized the truth in my voice. No amount of money could erase the years of struggle. The lessons learned, or the love that had grown stronger than fear. Together, Sarah and I walked toward the restaurant door. The rain had stopped. Light spilled across the wet street. My son laughed, spinning around with joy. Sarah turned to me. I cannot believe how far you have come, she said softly. I cannot believe what we have built, together. I smiled. Neither can I replied. But the real success, I added, was never in the money. It was in finding people who believe in kindness, in patience, and in each other. That day, I realized something powerful. Hardship shapes us. Betrayal tests us. But love and trust rebuild us stronger than before. We opened the doors of our new center for children. Every child who entered felt hope. Every parent who walked in felt relief. And Sarah? She became not just a partner, but the heart of everything we had created. The moral was clear. True wealth is not counted in currency, but in courage, kindness, and the people who never give up on you. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, do not forget to subscribe, share and comment.